He said, don't let what you can't do stop you from what you can do.
Well, good morning and welcome, Xperience Brokerage Network. Excited to have you all here, and I'm sure as we go, we will grow as well. I'm not going to say much at all today. We are thrilled to have a guest, Mr. Dick Dillingham. I've known Dick for quite some time, actually. I've spent some group time and some one-on-one time with Dick, and just thrilled to be able to have many of you that have seen him from afar teaching over the course of his, dare I say, decades at KW and with the industry. You're in for a treat today. Really perfect timing for our conversation today. I'll just let you know that from my perspective, as you guys know, I don't get wildly impressed with accomplishments, and I don't talk about accomplishments a whole lot. I get wildly impressed with human beings, and we talk about the human here, and we look for great humans to introduce you to and to have you taught and sort of collaborate with. And Dick Dillingham is one of those guys. He's one of the first people I met as I came to KW, because way back, maybe 12, 13 years ago, Katie Benson had flown him in to Portland, and I had just took the TL role back then. And so got to meet Dick at that point in time, and then I've stayed in touch along the way, and seen him on the East Coast and spent some time with him down in Dallas, where he is currently. He's the OP down there of a few market centers, actually, a couple outside of Texas, as well as the owner of the KW Northern California and Hawaii region with some partners, and has been just an icon of a coach and a teacher and trainer for our company. I think at a certain point in time, you were the vice president and dean of Keller Williams University as well, Dick. So more than anything, just wanted to thank you so much for spending some time with us. I'll have Leslie sort of intro our power partners here, and then we're going to dive in just a minute. But I wanted to personally just express my gratitude for you being willing to share your time with our people here.
It's my honor. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, I am super excited for this one. And before we get started, you guys, welcome to our final Master Series event of 2020. We are closing out the year strong. And of course, you know that we do not succeed alone. A couple of years ago, we asked ourselves what was the one thing that we could do to bring the highest amount of value to our agents and our leaders. And we created the Master Series, bringing in the best speakers, trainers, coaches, and business owners from across the country. And we partnered with incredible partners in growth. I'd like to welcome to our call today, or welcome back to our Master Series, Fidelity National Home Warranty. Joining us today is Andrea Crawford and Lisa Justison. Are you guys with us?
We are. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful introduction, Leslie. And thanks for having us. We're so happy to be your power partners. Betty Carter, our fearless leader, will not be joining us today. She's a little under the weather. For those of you in Southern Washington, East Portland, Eugene Corvallis, Kevin Wyans is your guy, and he's actually on vacation. So let's hope Kevin's having a great time wherever he is. I am Andrea Crawford, and my territory is West Portland, Central Oregon, and Salem. So if you're in any of those areas, I'm your girl. Please call me. And we have from Southern Oregon and Northern California as part of her territory as well, Lisa Justison, who's going to talk about the differences in our plans so that you guys know the best options for every specific transaction so you can best meet your clients' needs, because there's a lot of differences in them. Lisa?
Thank you, Andrea. It's really good to be here, you guys. Yeah, what I'm gonna do is touch on some questions that I've had over the years. Many agents think that there's the only real difference between our standard policy and our comprehensive policy is air conditioning. And you think if you don't need that, you're not going to get the comprehensive. But let me give you a couple of examples where it really does come in handy. I had a couple of months ago, a water heater replacement where we were replacing the water heater. But unfortunately, the homeowner had our standard policy. He ended up having to be out of pocket $600. because even though we covered the cost to replace the unit, we covered the labor, there's other costs involved, like hauling away the old water heater, the permit involved, any modifications necessary. So had he had the comprehensive coverage, he wouldn't have been out of pocket any money. And I know Andrea had something, I think she said just last week, on a heater, same situation. Unfortunately, the homeowner had to be out of pocket $1,000 or $1,100, I think she said, because he didn't have the comprehensive coverage. So just understanding those differences. And if you're dealing with a house that doesn't have air conditioning, you can remove that and then just still order the comprehensive coverage to get the better coverage. Also, if you're selling a house or dealing with a transaction where the home comes with the refrigerator or the washer dryer, you'll want to choose our enhanced policy because they're not automatically covered. So be sure to choose the enhanced policy if the refrigerator, washer, dryer is part of the sale. And then lastly, we have our enhanced plus policy. Specifically, I encourage you to look at that if you're dealing with older homes. We know that with older homes, lots of modifications have to happen if we're making a replacement. And so with that enhanced plus policy, we provide $1,250 towards those modifications. And I've seen it time and again save our homeowners a lot of money. So just understanding the different coverage we offer to suit your specific needs for your clients will help your clients have better coverage and help us to give them better service. So as Andrea said, we love being here. We're thrilled to be a part of your team here. If you need anything, you know how to get in touch with us, hopefully, and we'll be happy to help you. Thanks again for having us.
Thanks, ladies. And as always, we will send out all of their contact information, flyer on policies with our wrap up after this event. Before we get started, I just want to make a note. I've already heard from several agents this morning that this, unfortunately, some of you guys are on our fall masterminds. We will give you all of the information after the event today. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome one of my favorite instructors, the man that I was told when I joined Keller Williams, don't miss a class that he is teaching. Mr. Dick Dillingham, take it away.
Well, gosh, Leslie, thank you. You and Chris have made this. I mean, you've put a lot of pressure on me here. I'm going to have to kind of reach up for a very high bar, but I really appreciate it. You know, I love y'all's region. I've been there several times over the years. I can remember, I think the very first time I was there, we taught Quantum Leap in Tacoma. And Bruce Hardy was a mega agent and the OP of Tacoma. He wasn't even regional director yet. And that was my auspicious beginning within the Northwest region. And I've been back several times. You know, I'm going to just say something that's off my schedule here. We talk about value proposition all the time, and we talk about our own personal value proposition and the value proposition of Keller Williams. For me, the most important ingredient of the Keller Williams value proposition are the people I'm in business with. And that's people like Chris and you, Leslie, and Bruce and Katie and Dawn Soroka, and I could go on and on and on because I know a lot over the years. I've met a lot of people in your region, and also a lot of those people are on the Xperience team now. So, but anyway, so we're going to talk about mindset. And before I get into what it is and how to deal with it and why we're talking about it, I want to give you some instructions on how to listen to me, because after all, it is all about me. So what you're going to hear from me are stories, quotes, ideas, thoughts, and what you won't hear from me is advice. You won't hear advice from me. I don't give advice. I know what works for me, and I'm going to tell you what works for me. I'm going to tell you what I've seen. I'm going to tell you what I've heard, what I've learned. And then it's really going to be up to you to sort of deal with all of that. I want to give you a quote. I'm a quote ninja, actually. So you're going to get a lot of quotes from me today. And the first quote comes from Socrates. Now, Socrates was a new agent when I was new and had the cube next to me. But he said this, he said, I cannot teach anyone anything. I can only make them think. And that's my goal today. My goal today isn't to teach you anything. My goal is to expose you to these stories, ideas, quotes, thoughts, expose you to these things so that you can think about them and choose which ones you think would work for you, or double down on the things that are already working for you. You know, Gary Keller said in a video called The History of Keller Williams, he was quoted in that video as saying, what we need to do is to teach our people how to think properly and then leverage that thinking into a powerful tool. It's all about thinking. And I saw a quote the other day that said, challenge yourself to think better. And that is very simple, but very important. So here we go, mindset. Why are we talking about mindset? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of different perspectives. First of all, I'm going to talk about the 6 personal perspectives. And the 6 personal perspectives are the result of Gary Keller doing some research. And what he did, he went out and surveyed successful people from all walks of life, not just real estate, but successful people from every walk of life. And the intent, the original intent, was to find out how they were made successful. What is it that caused them to be successful? What he came away with was they were successful for a lot of different reasons, but the common theme was their attitude or their mindset. They all had a positive mindset or positive attitude. I might even say a powerful mindset or powerful attitude. And at the same time, virtually all of them agreed that that was one of the most difficult things that they had in front of them, is to maintain a positive, powerful mindset or attitude, to maintain that attitude. And so when you think about that, it's not a one and done kind of thing. Well, okay, I've got a positive attitude. What should I do next? Positive attitude comes and goes for all of us. I use the expression that a positive mindset or positive attitude is a fleeting thing. It's very fragile. You can be up on the top of the mountain 1 second, and a nanosecond later, you can be down in the deepest valley, just from an attitude standpoint. And so over the years, what I've realized is, finding out about myself, I've realized that my attitude can be fragile at times, just like probably most people. And so I've had to develop some ideas or some ways to combat falling off the attitude mountain, so to speak. And so those are what we're going to talk about today and share with you today. And I'll throw in a few stories. But before I leave the 6 personal perspectives, I want to give you a thought. The thought is that the first of the 6 is self-mastery. Self-mastery. Now, when we get into it, what we realize and what we talk about is, unless you have self-mastery, you really can't have mastery of anything else. You have to master yourself first. And one of the steps to self-mastery is knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and dealing more from your strengths than from your weaknesses. When I teach a class called Quantum Leap, which is a class on how to have a better life or lead a more purposeful life. It's a wonderful class. It's been life-changing for me. And it really is pretty representative of my growth pattern. I took it the first couple of times with Gary, who wrote it, and I didn't even stay till the end, because when I heard it wasn't about how to do more business, I thought, well, I don't need this. I don't need stuff about who I am and why I'm here and get in touch with myself and all this. But about the 3rd time I took it, a light bulb went off, and I said, I think I do need this for myself. I don't really know enough about myself. And so really that's kind of when my journey kind of ramped up even to a higher degree about finding out about myself. So knowing your strengths is a real important exercise to go through. So in Quantum Leap, one of the things we do in class, and I would urge you guys to do this wherever you are, whenever you have time, it doesn't take long. Give yourselves 5 or 10 minutes and just get a blank piece of paper out and write down all your strengths, all your strengths. Now, I'm reading a book right now written by John Maxwell, and he gives that advice. And he says, if you have trouble identifying your strengths, ask people who know you. Ask people who know you what they think your strengths are. And so it's a very powerful exercise, and I think you'll find it to be very useful. All right, so one of the things that we realize is life is about choices. Life is about choices. In the One Thing book, written by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, there's a quote in there, and it says, successful people simply make better choices than others. So making great choices is a skill. It's something that you have to learn how to do. And one of the things you find out is that every choice you make involves consequences or ramifications. There's a great expression that I'm reminded of many times, and it says, whatever you say yes to, you're actually saying no to everything else at that time. So if you're a brand new agent and you decide to call for sale by owners, then in a manner of speaking, you're saying no to networking, you're saying no to expired, you're saying no to starting a geographic farm. Now, later in the day, later in the week, if you decide to switch over and do expireds, now you're saying no to for sale by owners, because we're talking about in the moment. In that moment, you're saying yes to one thing, but you're saying no to everything else. A more basic example would be if you're at the office, you're saying no to being at home. If you're at home, you're saying no to being at the office. So every choice we make has ramifications and consequences. And so the goal from a success standpoint is to make the best choices possible. That was brought home to me probably 25 years ago. I was at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. This is one of the most impactful things that's ever happened to me. And you'll think, well, this sounds very simple. And it was a simple thing, but it caused a lot of deep thinking. So I'm at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, and I decided to get my shoes shined. And I tell this story every time I teach Quantum Leap. So Leslie, you've probably heard this story. But I get up in the shoe shine chair, and the guy says to me, how you doing? I said, I'm doing okay. I said, how are you doing? He said, I'm doing fantastic. Why would I choose anything else? See, he understood. Life is nothing but choices. So you can choose every day when you get up, every day during the day, that you're having a fantastic day or you're having an okay day. One of the answers I get a lot is, oh, so-so. How's your day going? So-so. How's your day going? Not too bad. Not too bad. So-so. Average. Why don't you just have a fantastic day? Why don't you just convince yourself you're having a fantastic day? Now, will all your days be fantastic? Of course not. But I would bet, I would virtually guarantee you that if you go into every day with the attitude that it's going to be a fantastic day, you're going to have more fantastic days than not. You're going to have certainly more fantastic days than you would have had otherwise. All right, so I'm going to give you another quote. See, I told you, I warned you. This quote is from Andy Andrews, who is one of my favorite authors, Andy Andrews. And we're going to talk about books here in a second, but here's the quote. Be the kind of person other people want to be around. Let me say it again. Be the kind of person other people want to be around. You know, there's people who, when they walk in a room, it's like the lights blink up. It gets brighter when you walk in the room. Then there's people who walk in the room, the lights go out, you know? So you want to be one of those people who make a room brighter when you walk into it, not when you leave. So be the kind of person other people want to be around. The only other thing I'll say, and I've been doing a lot of reading, and I'm going to share some of that with you, of course, is there's a big emphasis on understanding the difference between things that you have control over and things you don't have control over. The things you don't have, and by the way, in either of those cases, you do have control over how you deal with those things. But dwelling on something that you don't have control over is a risky or a low return exercise. You need to move along to things that you do have control over, like your mindset or your attitude. Okay, so here are some options, here are some choices on how to deal with your attitude if it needs a little shoring up or a little work in terms of getting it better. And you need to find which of these work for you. You may already have some techniques that you do. I mean, in a sense, one of the things is, what do you do when you get down? What do you do when you're having a bad day? What do you do when you sort of fall off the mountaintop? You know, what do you do? How do you deal with it? Because it's going to happen. It has happened to you, and it will happen again. The real issue is how fast you get back up when you fall. How fast do you get back up when you fall? And how do you make getting back up fast happen for you? So here's the options. You just think about the ones that that would pertain to you or that you've experienced in the past. One of the ones I've talked about already a little bit is books. Read books. Now, read books in a purposeful way. Look for the things that you can learn from the books. Be purposeful about who wrote the book, what it's about. Find your favorite books in terms of building you up. Some of my favorite authors are John Maxwell. I love John Maxwell books because he's so idea centric. He's got a lot of ideas. He's very positive. He's very up. He's got a good sense of humor. So I love listening to him live, and I love reading his books. Some of my favorite books that he has written, probably my number one book written by John Maxwell, is called Intentional Living. Intentional Living. A couple of the other good ones that are on my reading list are Failing Forward. I love Failing Forward. I love Today Matters. I love one that he just wrote called Leadership. That was a great book. And the book that I'm reading now by Maxwell isn't even out yet. And it is Change Your World. Change Your World. So there's a couple of examples. And you read those books and you come away with renewed energy, with renewed enthusiasm, with some great ideas and some great quotes. When I read one of Maxwell's books, I have a quote list sitting right beside me. And every time I read something in there, because he has a lot of quotes in his books from other people. And so I just got this list ready to go that when I read something, I stop reading and write it down. Here's one in the book, Change Your World. Here's an example. You will never be what you ought to be until you are doing what you ought to be doing. See, I think that's very cool. Very cool. Here's another one, last example. Focus on your purpose, not perfection. Focus on your purpose, not perfection. So I've got this list of quotes going along because I know there'll be a bunch of them in there. Another author that I like a lot is Andy Andrews. Now, Andy Andrews wrote The Traveler's Gift. He wrote The Noticer, and he wrote The Noticer Returns. Now, he's written a couple of other books that I wasn't quite as thrilled about. And so if I'm reading a book, even by one of my favorite authors, and I'm reading along and I'm not getting kind of good vibes, I'm not getting inspired, I'll quit reading it. I'll quit reading it and go to the next one by that author, or wait for the next one to come out. He's got a new one out. It just has come out, and I haven't even gotten it. It's something like, I think the title is simply Jones, Jones. And Jones is a fictional character in The Noticer and The Noticer Returns. So it's just Jones, or it's Jones something. But anyway, look for that. Andy Andrews got some great quotes in his, and great way to write in his. I love The One Thing, so I would recommend The One Thing. I recommend pretty much anything by Gary Keller. He's also very positive in the way he thinks and the way he writes. So I love The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. I think the ideas in it are rock solid. I think if you're in any kind of sales, not just real estate, but any kind of sales, there's a ton of stuff in that book for you. And by the way, don't assume that every page of every book is going to be a great idea for you. You may read 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 pages and not come away with anything new. But if you're looking for ideas and you're looking for things to back up some of the ideas you already have, you'll find a lot from Gary Keller. The One Thing was a great book. He and Jay Papasan wrote that book. I've already quoted from that book. Frankly, I like biographies of people that I am, that are kind of my role models or heroes. And that would include Mo Anderson's book. Mo Anderson's book is A Joy-Filled Life, and it's very inspirational. It talks about where she came from and what things she had to overcome in her life. And that's, to me, that's very inspirational. I've got a list of heroes and role models, and it just seems like every time I read a book about one of my heroes or one of my role models, I come away just 3 feet off the ground. I'm just higher than a kite. Okay, so there's some ideas. Maxwell Andrews, Gary Keller, Mo Anderson. There's others, but those are the key ones. Quotes and ahas. Ahas are ideas that stick, kind of like quotes. I'm looking for them all the time. As a matter of fact, one of the things I'm doing right now, I've got a project on social media. It's on Facebook specifically. And for approximately the last 5 months, because a lot of it was because of the pandemic. And I thought, what can I do to pick people up, to help people? And I started putting in one post a day called Positive Thought of the Day. Positive Thought of the Day. I've done it for every day for approximately 5 months. And so as a result, I'm constantly looking for new quotes to use on that project. I looked at all my quotes that I've collected for that project, and I have over 400 quotes that I have collected for that project. So if you've missed my first 5 months, settle in, because I've got enough material for at least another 7 months. And then by then, I'm sure I'll have even more. But that search for new quotes and that thought process of, would this quote pick people up? It's amazing how it picks me up. It is amazing how inspiring it is to me first. And so then I share it with other people. So I'm doing that on Facebook, and have been doing it, like I said, for really about 5 months, getting a lot of good feedback. Everybody loves to be encouraged. And so I'm encouraged that people are finding it helpful and valuable. Podcasts, listening to podcasts. I'm not a super high-tech guy. Matter of fact, I got one of our tech guys in my office in Plano, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas. And I said, Ivan, I want to start listening to podcasts. How do I do that on my mobile phone? He goes, well, just look at the icon and it's labeled podcast and click on it. Well, I felt kind of silly, because once you do that, then it's just a search for whose podcast it is. But the first podcast that I listened to from start to finish was Think Like a CEO, which was Gary Keller being interviewed by Jay Papasan. And I loved it. I really did love it. And I found myself going over it more than once, each session more than once. A couple other ideas for podcasts could be Andy Andrews has a podcast. I mean, everybody has a podcast except for me, I think. But Andy Andrews has one. Tim Ferriss has a nice podcast. You may not remember that name or you may not know that name. Tim Ferriss was the last speaker at this past year's mega camp. Gary Keller had already knew Tim for years and got Tim on the agenda for mega camp and interviewed Tim as the last speaker of mega camp. And I was very impressed with that interview and with Tim's thoughts. And so Tim's got a good podcast. Here's another one. And this is really important. This is so important. The people you surround yourself with. The people you surround yourself with. You want to surround yourself with people who build you up, not with people who tear you down. You know, I've already mentioned to you, I've already used the language. Tim Ferriss was one. I said, I like the way he thinks. I liked his interview. I mentioned that about Gary. I mentioned it about Andy Andrews and John Maxwell. The way people think will either attract me to them or drive me away from them. That's that build me up or tear me down. I had a friend one time who called me and she said, you know, we're in this economic downturn. This was back in 2009, 10. We were in a very tough market then. And she said, it's such a tough market. Have you looked at the paper today? And I said, no, it was morning time. And I said, no, I haven't really looked at the paper. I try not to look at the paper that much if times are tough. Because the paper knows that negative sells, bad news sells. And you can see that today. And you've seen it for the last 7 months or maybe longer. But anyway, she said, well, let me read you the headline on the front page. It says, recession could become depression. She said, what do you think about that? What I wanted to say to her was how much I appreciated her picking up my attitude for the day. But I just said to her, you know, it doesn't really matter what they call it. I have to sell houses. I have to sell houses if it's good times. I have to sell houses if it's bad times. I sell houses when it's raining. I sell houses when it's cold. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. And she said, yeah, that's what I thought too. Which is not what she thought. She wanted to drag me down with her. Misery loves company. And based on that phone call, I moved her away from my inner circle and moved her out because I can't afford that kind of thinking to be around me. So who you surround yourself with, we need people more than they need us. And so you need a support system. So when you get somebody like Leslie or like Chris, like Bruce Hardy, there's so many others, Katie, and others. I'm leaving tons of people out, I know, and I'm sorry about that. But it won't take long to identify those kind of people. Remember, they're the kind of people that other people want to be around. So identify those people and surround yourself with them. Social media, I've already mentioned my little project. What I would say to you is when you're cruising and browsing social media, pay attention to the positive posts and just ignore the negative posts. Just go past them. You'll also find out that some people are consistently negative posting and some people consistently post positive thoughts. And that may lead you to do a little work on who your friends are, social media friends are, and who they aren't. If I see somebody who's consistently giving out bad news and bad thoughts, using bad language, I just defriend them. I don't need to hear it. I'm protecting myself. I want you to understand I'm protecting myself and my attitude and my mindset. One of my biggest heroes early on in business was Zig Ziglar. And Zig wrote this in one of his books, probably See You at the Top. I'm pretty sure it was See You at the Top. He said, would you let a friend of yours come into your living room and dump a pail of garbage on the floor? And I thought to myself, well, of course not. I wouldn't do that. And he said, well, that's what a lot of us are doing with our minds. We're letting our friends dump garbage into our minds. And I thought, wow, that's pretty strong. Okay, when we're talking about social media, I want to give you two ideas or two things to look for. You can either look for them on, actually one of them's a website and the other one's on social media. The social media one is James Shaw. So plug into James Shaw, and he's got a private group that you can join called Pivot Shift Ahead. Pivot Shift Ahead. It's kind of like what I'm doing with Positive Thought for the Day, is he kind of gives you a positive idea for the day also. Although he just does Monday through Friday. So I do 7 days a week. So anyway, James is a great guy. James is one of those people I'd love to just be in dialogue with on a consistent basis. He's a great thinker. He's a wonderful family man. He's a former bowl coach, and he's just good to the core. And that's the kind of guy you want to hang out with, either directly or indirectly. And he's on Facebook consistently. The website that I want to direct you to is, and by the way, James gave this website and their book a plug about a week or 10 days ago. But the website is markandangel.com, and it's MARCANDANGEL, markandangel.com. And they wrote a book that James hyped just a few days ago called 1,000+ Little Things Happy Successful People Do Differently. Let me say it again. 1,000+ little things happy, successful people do differently. And then they'll, if you sign up for their email list, if you get on their email list, you'll get an email from them almost every day. One of the ones I recently got was this: one wake-up call unhappy people refuse to answer. And it's a shot in the arm. That they at first I wasn't reading them consistently because I got tired of getting them every day. It seemed like I was getting them every day. Then I started reading them, and I thought, well, I like these. And so I read them every day. I get one, I read it, and I look for a great idea from it. And so I would recommend you at least check it out. So that's social media, that's a website. Here's another thing that'll make you feel better. Give something to someone or help someone. Help someone or give something to someone. Give them money, give them your time, give them your care. Just give someone something, help someone with something. There's an old expression that says, give it out in loaves and give it out in slices and you'll get it back in loaves. Zig said, if you can help enough other people get what they want in life, you can have anything in life you want. And we use that expression around Keller Williams quite a bit. Matter of fact, Keller Williams, the Y4C2T is it is success through other people. Help them be successful and then you'll be successful. So give to people, help other people, and you'll feel good. For me, my faith is another source to pick me up. And I want to share an example with you. Last Sunday, our preacher gave us 5 guidelines. I'm not going through the whole thing, but he said 5 guidelines for finishing life strong. And he talked a little bit about retirement, and he had I wrote down this quote: don't retire from life. Don't retire from life. And he told the story about how when his dad retired from his job, he kind of retired from life. He became just dull and listless and didn't have any interests and didn't do anything. But the 5 guidelines for finishing strong: 1, maintain your physical health. 2, stay on track throughout your life. 3, pay attention to the right priorities. 4, have a heart for others, care for them. And number 5, don't be bitter. Forgive other people. Bitterness is contagious and it spreads like a poison. Don't become a bitter person. So, those things. He also mentioned Finishing Strong or Finishing Well was a book written by Bob Buford. Now, Bob Buford passed away, I think about a year ago or a little less than a year ago. He lived here in Dallas. I never met him, but the book that I read that he wrote, and it was recommended to me, and it was a great book called Halftime. And the great quote in Halftime was, if the first half of your life was a quest for success, make the second half of your life a quest for significance. And so my pastor mentioned that book and mentioned Bob's other book, Finishing Strong or Finishing Well. And I haven't read that one. So I'm going to go find that book and read that book also. So those are just things that I love about my faith, which picks me up from an attitude or mindset standpoint. Have a mission statement, have a purpose, have something you're passionate about. And that's going to be related to your strengths. It will be related to your strengths. Dave Ramsey said this: if you're not passionate about what you're doing, when the times get tough, you'll quit. You got to be passionate. You got to be passionate to go through tough times. You got to be passionate. Have life goals or a bucket list. Have life goals or a bucket list and pursue them. Pursue those goals. Pursue that bucket list. You know, life is worth living. So where have you not been you'd love to go? Who have you not met you'd love to meet? What have you not done you'd love to do? See, this is about thinking about you. I wonder if you know, if you're married, I wonder if you know what's on your spouse's bucket list. What could you help your spouse do that would be, you know, my spouse wanted to go to Italy. Well, heck, I wanted to go to Italy too. But I don't know that I wanted to go as badly as she wanted to go. And so when we went to Italy, I literally can tell you I enjoyed it more because she was there, that I was able to help her take that trip to Italy. I mean, I loved it on its own, but I really loved the idea that we did it together. So it meant a lot to her and it meant a lot to me. Be cool. Be cool. Now, cool is an acronym. It's KOOL. I use that in my training when I do train the presenter or train the trainer. And the acronym stands for Keen Observer of Life. Pay attention to what's going on around you. Pay attention to the people around you. Pay attention to everything that's happening. You'll learn so much by paying attention and being curious about what's going on around you. And one of the things that I've adopted is I've become quite the walker. You know, that's my cardio. I walk. And my preference is to walk around the neighborhood, and I take different paths, so I see different things. Of course, being in the real estate more than 40 years, one of the things that I observe or I look for is I look at the houses. I look at shutters. I look at front doors. I look at windows. I look at yards. I look at landscaping. I look at who's got a good looking yard, who's got a lousy yard. I look at signs in the yard. I just look at everything. I'm just curious. I want to have a curious mind. I want to pay attention to what's happening in life. I don't want to go through life on autopilot. So be cool. Be a keen observer of life. I have a feel-good file. A feel-good file. When I get somebody who writes me a note or an email and it's complimentary and it's encouraging, many times I'll save it. I'll save it because from time to time, I pull that feel-good file out and I read through it. I was talking to a guy last night in our company, and I said, he's stepping down from his position. And I said, so why are you stepping down? And he said, well, I don't think I'm doing that good a job, and I'm discouraged, and I'm kind of stressed out. I'm kind of stressed out and I'm kind of discouraged. And so here's what I said to him. I said, well, let's talk again. We're going to talk again this coming Tuesday. And I said, between now and Tuesday, I want you to make a list of everything you've accomplished in that position over the last 2 years. I'm going to ask for a feel-good list. What are all the things you've accomplished? Because see, where he is mindset-wise, he's discouraged, he's disappointed. He thought he would come on like gangbusters and turn the world around, and he feels stressed. So he's in a negative mindset about that position and about that job. And heck, I've been there. I recognize it. So what I'm doing is I'm having him turn the page and say, okay, before we leave this whole idea, I want you to write down all the things you've accomplished in this position over the last 2 years, all the things you've done well, all the people you've helped. And then we'll re-talk about this. You know, I had a boss when I first got in the business, and I became a manager of a traditional office, and she was the president. So I answered to her. And here's one thing she said. She said, don't ever let anybody make a decision when they're down, when their thinking is negative. Don't let them make an important decision while their attitude or their mindset is negative. At least get them back to neutral and then make the decision. See, I think that's what this person is doing, the one I referred to and spoke with last night. I think this person is making a very important decision based on how he's feeling. He's feeling down. He's feeling disappointed. He's feeling discouraged. He's feeling stressed. Well, how in the world are you going to make a good decision if you're in that mindset? So I'll see what happens when we talk again on Tuesday. So here's something that's kind of got, so I walk around the neighborhood quite a bit. And when I walk around, I'm either playing a podcast or I'm playing music. So music is an encouragement to me. Now, I have certain types of music that I like more than others, and certain artists that I like more than others. And I will say, I can play music and I can also have thinking time at the same time. Gary Keller said at the beginning of Mega Camp this past year, he said, this pandemic and the quarantining and the lockdowns, he said, it's given me and it should have given you time to think about yourself, time to think about your life. And that's what these walks do for me. They give me time to think about myself, my life, what I'm doing, what I want to do, where I see myself in the next 3 years or 5 years. And it's good time. It's a good time. Another one is laugh or humor. I wrote this down. I said, look for funny. Look for funny. I mean, a good laugh will bring you right back up. I remember one of the expressions I love, it's sort of an ironic expression. It says, if I wasn't laughing, I'd be crying. And but the laugh is healthy. It's good for you. I love people who make me laugh. I love speakers who are funny. John Maxwell is so funny. I love being around John Maxwell. Dave Ramsey has been at our family reunion before, and he's hilarious. I love Dave Ramsey. But one of the things I started doing probably, I know it was at least 40 years ago, is I started collecting country and Western lyrics, because I like country and Western, first of all. I like the industry, I like the genre, but I love funny lyrics. And so I collect funny country and Western lyrics. So I'm going to give you a couple of them to give you an example. This is in a George Strait song, and the lyric goes, I ain't never seen no hearse with a luggage rack. Now, I haven't looked up all these to see who sang them, but they're all legitimate lyrics in country and Western songs. Here's one. There ain't no queen in my king-size bed. I miss you, baby, but my aim's getting better. When the phone don't ring, you'll know it's me. And then my favorite of all is, if I'd have shot you when I wanted to, I'd be out of prison by now. See, I just love those things, and they pick me up. And I've got a whole file folder. I've got probably over 500 of them. And I look for them. People send them to me. And I just love those. I love that little pick me up. See, it's just a little shot in the arm. And then the last thing I wrote down, and I didn't have this until this morning, actually. I wrote down bold, the bold course. And the part that I want you to think about, I mean, taking bold is one thing, but I want you to concentrate on the bold laws. The bold laws are so helpful to positive mindset and attitude, almost from top to bottom. Matter of fact, when I started this project that I described to you on social media, where I had the positive thought for the day, when I got to the bold laws, I wrote almost every one of them down. And I've shared each one of those on my positive thought for the day on Facebook. And it's just, bold does work with you on your attitude, on your mindset. There's a great quote that said, nothing exceptional has ever been accomplished with a lousy attitude. Nothing exceptional has ever been accomplished with a lousy attitude or a weak mindset. And I think that's true. So bold laws, very important. I want to leave you with another quote, and it has to do really with business or life. And the quote was John Wooden, who was the men's basketball coach for UCLA, the UCLA Bruins. They won 14 national championships. The next coach who has the next highest number of national championships is like 5. 5 is the number two coach in the land, so to speak, or in history. John Wooden had 14. Here's what he said. He said, don't let what you can't do stop you from what you can do. Don't let what you can't do stop you from what you can do. Now, I'd call that possibility thinking. I would call it dealing from your strengths. And I know I use it in life, but I used it in my business. There were a lot of things in the real estate business I was unwilling or unable, take your pick, didn't want to do. I didn't want to cold call. I didn't want to knock doors. I didn't want to call for sale by owners. I didn't want to call expires. I didn't want to start a farm. I didn't want to take floor time. There's a lot of stuff I didn't want to do. But what I was willing to do and what I was very good at and what I'm still very good at is networking. Networking, people to people, getting a database full of people who know me, like me, and trust me. Not a whole list of people who I risk rejection from. That just isn't a perfect world for me. Rejection is not a part of my perfect day. I'm willing to tell you that. So if I don't want to risk rejection, what can I do? What will I do? And what can I do well? It's network. It is networking. And there is nothing more important to my success than having a great database and networking through it. All right, so there's about 12 or 14 items that are things that are options for you. Be realistic about your life. You're going to fall. You're going to have a down day, a down moment, a down hour. Just don't make it a down week or a down month. You got to get back up. Here's another quote for you. Life can be hard. Life can be hard, but it is so worth it. It is so worth it. There's another one that I just read the other day, and it said, none of our problems, it said, nothing lasts forever. Here's how it reads. Nothing lasts forever, not even our problems. They don't last forever. You got to be persistent. You got to be consistent. You got to be strong. But you know what? We all need help. We all need help. So surround yourself with people or do some of these things. You pick. I hope I've been helpful. Leslie, I think you're still on the call, Leslie. I haven't really had a chance to look at the chat box. I don't know if you have any questions or if others have questions you want us to address.
We do have a question, and for those of you watching, if you do have any questions, thoughts, or anything you want to share, please drop it in the chat box. Like the one question that was asked was people were ferociously writing down as many of those books as you were saying. Do you happen to have a list of books that you would be willing to share of your favorites, or where would you direct them?
Yes, I'll tell you what, I'll send that to you and then you can get it out to all the people.
Perfect.
Actually, I even thought, so I have 2 book lists, okay? I have the book list of the books I've read and the books that are on the list to read. You know, you can tell a lot by a person, the books they read or the books that are in their bookshelf. And I'm just looking at my bookshelf right behind me. And at one point I thought, I should just read you some of these titles. These are books I haven't read yet, or in some cases I have read them. But it tells you about a person. It tells you what they like. It tells you what their attitude is about, how strongly. I looked at one just before we got on the call, and it was by Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N. Make a note of that name. Anything, I mean, he passed away, but he was like a mentor to Zig Ziglar, Tommy Hopkins, all those guys, all the positive thinking gurus. Jim Rohn was the man. And I've got one of his books right here, and I said to myself when I saw that, I said, why have I not read this yet? Leading an Inspired Life. Leading an Inspired Life. And so that's on my bookshelf. That's on my bookshelf. There's another one by Mike Huckabee. It says, Do the Right Thing. He's a former governor of Arkansas. Do the Right Thing. A Purpose-Driven Life is on my bookshelf. But yes, I'll give you both a list of books that I'm going to read, and then that list of books that I called out to you, books that I would recommend.
Perfect, Dick. And I love that comment that you said is one of the things that you do. I mean, your leaders are readers, and clearly you are an avid reader. But what I loved was you said, if a book doesn't inspire me, I put it down.
Yep.
Tell us more about that, right? Like, if you picked that book up and you're reading it purposefully, at what point do you just say, hey, this isn't for me, it's not helping me move the needle?
You know, I'll give you an example, then I'm going to give you a little lesson that I learned from Gary Keller at the same time. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm a no-go on that book. I could not read that book. It was too complicated. It was too theoretical. I just couldn't. I'd read 40 pages and then I'd put it down for like a month. Then I'd have to read those 40 pages again. And then I'd put it down again. I just never could get through it. Gary Keller said this in a Quantum Leap class I was taking. He said, we read books for one of 2 reasons. We either read for pleasure or we read for ideas. And he said, when you read for ideas, you should skim the book until you come to a major idea. Then read that idea carefully, consider whether you agree with it, disagree with it, whether it supports what you believe or doesn't, and then start skimming again until the next idea. So in my mind, I thought, I could read Stephen Covey's book by just reading 7 pages. I'll just read the 7 habits. I don't need all the fluff in between. And it was very freeing. But it takes a little practice to skim through a book. And so if I'm not enjoying a book, I got too many on the bookshelf that I haven't gotten to. See, making a decision, when you say yes to something, when I said yes to Stephen Covey's book, and by the way, there's people I'm sure who think that's one of their very favorite books, different strokes for different folks. While I'm slugging my way through that book, I'm not reading 10 books that I'd rather be reading. You can't know it all, have it all, and do it all. So priorities. I hope that helps.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that sheet. I got to hear that sheet a couple of years ago. And I remember you saying, read the first sentence and the last paragraph in a chapter and skim in between for the ideas. Yeah. And has been very helpful in being purposeful about my reading.
Yeah, it takes a little discipline, but once you get it, man, oh man, does it help.
Perfect. Well, we are wrapping things up, Dick. We are closing out 2020. It has been an epic year, an interesting year, a unique year. We're getting our business plans for 2021. We're going to boil this down to the one thing. So if from today moving forward, our attendees, our agents, our KW family members were to implement one thing from today, what would you say is that one thing should be?
I think you should endeavor to be a lifelong learner. A lifelong learner. And let me share this. You can learn something in virtually any circumstance. Look at this pandemic. We've been through it for like almost 7 months. But there's an incredible number of things we've learned about business, about life, about our families. And I could spend an hour talking to you about the things that I've learned or that other people have shared that they've learned. The virtual open house. Holy cow. How about 41,000 people participating in Bold? You don't think that was an interesting switch, paradigm shift? Having Bold for $99 instead of $899 or $799? Having Mega Camp virtually? Holy cow, we have learned so much. But you've got to be, if you're truly learning based, you got to look for the learning. You can look for learning in everything. That's part of the secret of being cool. If I'm in a restaurant, I'm looking at people around me. I'm just trying to pick up something that I had not seen before, I hadn't heard before, a situation that I hadn't been in before, and learn from it. Be lifelong learners.
Love it. Endeavor to be a lifelong learner. Well, we are going to wrap it up with that. Dig, thank you so much for joining us today. For all of our KW and Xperience Brokerage Network family, stay tuned. We are in the works of planning our 2021 schedule. So this will wrap up our 2020. You anchored us here at the end, Dick. We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for all your nuggets of wisdom on mindset. You guys have a powerful and wonderful day, and we will see you next time.
Thanks to everybody on the call. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Chris.
Dick.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you all of you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate all you do for our team.